The nightmares surely wouldn't come tonight, right? The boy thought, when he chambered into his bed. He slid under the woolly sheets, but realizing it was July night, so too hot to have the thick comforters on his body. Instead, he just lay on the top of the bed sheets and stared up in the dark blue ceiling, with the window casting a yellow glow every so often from the passing car. The digital clock on his bedside table cast a bright red glow of 9:30 on the boy's face. Surely the nightmares wouldn't come. He glanced across from his pastel his mother had painted a group of cows grazing in the field. He started to count the cows, hoping that the action of doing so would stop him from falling asleep. 1 cow, 2 cows, 3 cows. He blinked until suddenly it was 10:24. He had slept, but he hadn't even noticed it. At first he panicked, but then realizing the nightmares would have already come by now, and relaxed and settled back down into the bed. Suddenly the clock managed to read 10:23. He drew back from in the alarm. Oh no. The clock then went back to 2:10. Well, 10:22, but then to 10:21. Then started to go back to fast as he all looked a blur. No, the numbers were replaced by a group of strange symbols, like some kind of alien holographs. Oh dear God, no. The glass on the water on his bed began to shake. The water obnoxiously rippled, and then he started to break into a cold sweat. And then came in real sweat. The room was getting hotter. The glass tipped over and smashed, spilling water all over the floor. The puddle of water started to bubble and steam. The boy huddled underneath the bed sheets. Everything was starting to shake now, and the room became hotter and hotter until it felt like it was even oven from hell. He knew what was happening now, and happened so many times already. The pain of the cows would start to curl and burn up, and eventually turn into fiery ash. The Kleenex would then begin to lift out of the box from the flaming fireballs, hurl themselves over across the room, exploding into smoke. He suddenly heard a cackle, which came and went on for a few seconds, then a rumbling of stone against stone. I don't remember this happening, the boy said to himself. He dared himself to peek out of his sheets, and then looked onto the ground. There were 5 glowing, concretic, circular depressions on the floor, and the rings were created by the depressions were spinning, emanating from the grinding sound that the boy had heard. The smoke curled up from the rings, like snakes curling up from the fiery domain. The rings rounded and spun faster and faster as the boy began to scream, and suddenly the bed just jitted up from off the ground and floated up into the air. The devilish cackle started again, and the boy could feel it rumbling in his soul, each laugh quickening his heartbeat a little more. The boy cried and huddled onto his bed as his own room was turned into a fiery inferno, and the walls and the floor and all turned ablaze, and the boy felt his own skin burning away at every flesh. Then everything stopped. The fire disappeared as if it was on rewind, and then the poster reversed, burned, and reappeared. The cup jumped back up from the floor and the ground. The water materialized from the steam and slipped back into the cup. Finally, as the bed fell to the ground with a crash, the clock reset to 10:24. The room was suddenly silent and cold, too silent. The boy carefully looked around, and the clock changed to 10:25. Were the nightmares over? Grrrr! A monster with the glowing red eyes appeared in front of his face, with snarling maw and gleaming with white teeth. Ah! The boy screamed. With all of the simulation ended. To continue, please insert $1. The boy lifted the goggles from his face. Man, I just love these simulations, he said to himself. He then lifted the covers from the mock and bed he used for these simulations, and then walked out of this shining metallic booth, which had been glowing neon sign labeled Fear. He then passed by several similar booths. A young woman simulated a secret party for herself in the surprise booth. A man walking in the rain after his girlfriend dumped him in sadness, and an old woman simulating sitting on the park and beach in happiness. He had finally been allowed by his parents to try out Fear, because earlier he had thought it was too powerful an emotion to feel for his age. but for his 8th birthday, it was acceptable. He finally came to a door, which opened into a dark hallway. He then started to walk down the hallway, which was only dimly lit, flickering fluorescent lights. Sometimes he passed over other people going to the direction on their way to visit the booths. When he turned to the right, he found the exit, and then stepped out of the museum and into the gray light. He then gazed up at the towering buildings and rushing cars, the dark, colorless world where all the emotions, feelings, and purpose was all sucked away. But at a time when the world wasn't like this could not only be remembered by anyone, but it's only in stores now. It's Bobby's 8th birthday today in the year 335. And that, my pretties, was Exits Down the Right, a creepypasta. My final thoughts on this story? A pretty interesting concept for a story involving, a young boy having nightmares and stuff. But when it was all just a simulation that someone actually is, basically using to relive that or something along the lines like that. My honest eyes, I thought it was a pretty interesting story, especially with given the concept of it of its own self. The story of its own self seemed pretty interesting, and it's definitely, and the fact that it's taken place, sometime in the year of 335, so that's way beyond years into the future. I wonder what it would look like back, in 335. But I mean, all the technology would probably just be like Fallout 4 type style. Because if you remember, if you've played the Fallout games, it takes many years into the future. So that's pretty surprising. But with that being said, I honestly thought it was a good story. I still thought it was neat. It's a pretty good story. Although I do know for a fact it's a short one. But I really thought it was a really interesting story. The concept of it was flat out amazing, and I honestly appreciate the grammar being good. The grammar is pretty good, and the sentence structuring was pretty good as well. I do find that it can be maybe just the whole fact is that it's a simulation. Was it supposed to be a real nightmare? I don't know if this was from a point of view of someone else or something, because it doesn't really explain much from that. But overall, I would have liked it if there was a bit of explanation. Was this young boy when he's having nightmares? Was it I don't know, was it real or something? Well, it must have been a simulation, but at the same time, it kind of makes me wonder what happened to it or something. But like I said, we may never really know, because what's really most disturbing out of everything I've seen is the unknown, because we don't really know what goes on in the unknown world. So, yeah. Anyways, with that being said and that being the case, I personally like this one. It was a good story. I thought it was neat. It's still a well-made story, and I highly recommend anybody who's looking into reading this story, I highly recommend they check it out. So, anyways, I guess with that being said and that being the case, I'm going to sit there and say right now that this is just simply my own personal opinion. And if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these creepypastas. This is just simply my own personal thoughts. Oh, and by the way, to the author of this story, I can't seem to find out who you are. If you happen to find out you're the author of the story and you happen to come across this video, please let me know who you are, so then I'll be sure to give the story proper credit. And if you're wondering where I listened a narration of this story from, because since I haven't seen many narrators narrate it, I actually narrated this story because I saw Seabass actually narrated it, and he said it was an interesting story, so I thought maybe I should give this one a go. So anyways, I give this story a 10 out of 10. It's pretty good. I honestly really like it's taken, into the future. It's pretty well made and amazing, and it's pretty interesting in my honest eyes. So, with that being said, and that being the case, what do you guys personally think of this story? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this story a lot better, Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Lion Queen. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and if you're new to my channel, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell for notifications when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro, because I'm out.